Hello, and welcome to episode 18 of We Were Athletes Once podcast. I'm Cody, and I'm here with Julian tonight. Um, we are excited. We are finally getting hockey off the ground, and if you've listened to other episodes, you know I am a hockey guy first and foremost, so this is exciting for me to get to talk hockey and to do it with someone else who absolutely loves hockey is going to be a pleasure. So before we get started, um, Julian, what are you most excited about coming into this hockey season?
I think just what's going to happen in the Central Division, I'm pretty excited about. There's a lot of good teams there. There's a few that are below the average, but you've got the Avalanche, the Wild, who just signed a massive contract with Kaprizov. I think the Blues, after what they did at the end of last season, they get a full season of Jim Montgomery, what they could do with that. Do the Blackhawks finally take a step up with their young guys? Maybe. Um, we'll see with the Avalanche. Does Landeskog still have it? So the Central Division will be fun to watch this year.
Yeah, and that doesn't include President Trophy winning Winnipeg still.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're not going to come out here and lie to you. I am a Blues fan. You guys know that already.
Big Blues fan as well.
So we will be a little biased towards the Central at times and to Blues specifically. Um, but I do think it is the toughest division in hockey, and I don't think it's particularly close. So we'll do a deep dive next week into all these divisions and what that's kind of going to look like. But for today, we've got some big news that has happened recently, and let's just start right off the bat with the biggest one. We thought we were going to see a holdout or a trade out of Minnesota with Kirill Kaprizov, but Kirill the Thrill just signed the biggest contract in NHL history by a lot. He got the 8-year, $17 million deal. What do you make of that?
I really thought he was going to end up getting traded just with how Wild have been with their cap space in past years with Suter and Parise with those massive contract buyouts and just how stuck they've been with the cap because of that. But I think it's a huge keep for the Wild just because that's their star guy. When he's not there, they struggle. They were first place. He got injured and they dropped way down into a wild card spot, fighting at the end there with the Blues and the Flames just for that last wild card spot out there in the West. So I think just having him sign there for 8 years, that brings a lot of confidence to the other guys on the team. He wants to win there. I mean, he took a lot of their money, so we'll see what if the cap goes up, how that will work continuing there. But they got a lot of young guys that are going to work well with him. Boldy, Rossi, you got Faber back on the back end. The Spurgeon, he's still pretty good. But I think the Wild keeping him was a great choice.
Yeah, he was their offense. He ran that. They've got a lot of good pieces, but they don't have that finisher. And Kaprizov is that finisher for him. He very well could be make a case for the best winger in the NHL. This one's hard though. Like we talk about the salary cap going up this year and going up even more next year, so it opens up some of these big contracts. But you just paid him $3 million more than the next highest paid player in the NHL, and that's Leon Draisaitl. Um, that's a tough look for me. I don't necessarily like it, but if he was talking about moving out, because I agree with you, I thought they were going to end up trading him. That seems like a very Bill Guerin move to make his stance and be like, hey, this is what it is. You can get in or you can get out, and they would have got a massive package back for him. But I think it was the smart move, even though it's going to eat a lot into their cap and what they can do into the future. But like you mentioned, getting Parisi and Suter, those dead cap off the books, makes this possible. So I was shocked. It kind of came out of nowhere. It seemed like they were at a standstill, and then boom, we get this massive breaking news, and I couldn't believe it. The years I expected, the number we had heard 16 already that he declined. So it makes sense that they go to 17 and get it. But man, that's gonna hurt. Um, what helps though, you kind of mentioned it. They've got some young pieces in there that are still on their ELCs and they're not getting paid yet. And my favorite, who I'm still mad the Blues didn't move up and take, is Zeke William. I love him on the back end, and I think he's a huge difference maker between him and Faber. Man, that team's going to be they're going to be hard to play against here real soon. So, as a Central Division fan, it's good. As a Blues fan, it's not so great for us. But that is the biggest story out of the NHL, and I think it kind of leads us into the next one is Connor McDavid. doesn't have a new contract yet. And it seems like there's some disagreement between his camp and Edmonton and what he actually wants. Does he want a short-term deal for a lot of money to get two contracts in? Does he want one big long-term? Does he even want to stay in Edmonton? Does he think they can win? Um, I don't know what's going on with it. How do you see this one playing out?
I could see two different ways here. I could see the kind of Kaprizov thing where there's a long holdout and they end up with he's going to get more than him now because of that recent signing. So I think he'll be upwards of 18, somewhere between 18 and 20 mil. And that brings up another thing. You've got Draisaitl on there, I think, for 14. And then you've got McDavid who's going to take another at least 17, 18 because I don't think he's going to take less than Kaprizov for, as he's touted as the best player in the league. Um, but the other way I could see that playing out is he leaves. And just where he could go, I think maybe somehow Rangers fill in that gap there. They've got an aging core there, and those guys could be on their way out. That clears up a lot of space for a big move like that. And then there's also the Hurricanes, who seem to get every star player they want whenever they want it. I don't know how they would particularly make that work, but there's always a way. They got Rantanen for a pretty sweet package there back in Edmonton, or not Edmonton, Avalanche. But
Yeah.
I think just in my eyes, the most likely way is he's out of there.
Yeah, and that seems weird to say, and a lot of people around the league's like, yeah, that can't happen. It's McDavid. If Gretzky could get traded, if Gretzky could go to multiple different teams, McDavid can get traded too. No player is immovable and untouchable, especially if they want out. Um, I I don't see him leaving. Um, I just have that feeling that he wants to be the guy that brings the cup back to Edmonton. I don't think it will happen if he stays there. I just don't, especially when you look at the contracts and where the cap is. Like, if you give him $20 million and you have Draisaitl at 14, and you still have Darnell Nurse at over 9 for several more years, like that's almost 2/3 of your cap in 3 players. Like, that just doesn't work to build a team. And the biggest issue with Edmonton they've had, they don't have a defense, and they don't have goaltending. Um, cool, you can score 5 goals a game, but you're giving up 8. Like, who cares? We've seen this play out in the playoffs. Like, they are a solid team still. They've gone to back-to-back cups and against Florida and ran into that buzzsaw and ended up losing them. Um, and so a lot of people are saying, well, maybe this is the year with the injuries Florida has, but I just don't see a way that you can sign McDavid for that much and build a contending team around him.
Not at all. Darnell Nurse too. He's got a terrible contract. He's not a terrible player, but he's not worth the money he's getting. And then I've recently been seeing him Stuart Skinner extension. I don't think that's the right move out of Edmonton at all. He's had 2 chances to win it for him and has not performed in any sense in the playoffs. He's getting pulled all the time. They're putting in a backup. You need a guy who's stable in the net to win a cup. It's not just all about McDavid and Draisaitl doing all the work. There's the depth isn't there in Edmonton, and if he stays, I don't think it's going to get any better.
Yeah, and they just gave also Evan Bouchard. They gave the 4-year, $10.5 million extension to this offseason as well. After this season, they have 3 defensemen signed, and one is honestly a 7th defenseman. After this year, they don't have a goaltender signed. Like, Edmonton, I think, is in a world of hurt in this next year. And as much as it would pain me to be an Edmonton fan to say this or to see this, like, probably your best bet is to trade him for just a king's ransom and build out a team around Draisaitl. Because this is not a winning team if they put out what they've had, because they have nothing on the back end. And like you said, Stuart Skinner is not the answer. I don't know why we keep testing that experiment. He's either lights out or he gives up 5 in a period. Like, it's just not in between. And that's not going to win you a Stanley Cup. So I don't know what's going on in Edmonton. It's going to be an interesting season for them to see if they can make it back, what happens with McDavid, because I don't think that he's going to want to have to deal with this conversation for the entire season. So I think he either signs or he shuts it down until the off season and is like, hey, we'll pick it up later. Or he tells them, hey, at the deadline, we're not having a good year, send me. So I think that's going to be an interesting storyline to watch for throughout the rest of the season. And speaking of who they've played in the playoffs, man, is Florida in for a world of hurt this year? We've got
100.
we've got Barkov, who just took the non-contact injury out for the season with the torn ACL, MCL, and you still have Matthew Tkachuk recovering from surgery, who's out until at least January. What is this team going to do?
They still have that depth there in those pieces. Marchand was a great ad. He's still got some juice left in him. Their defense, I think, is their bright spot there. Like even though you don't have like a really big name, you've got Ekblad, Forsling, Seth Jones. Like they're great players, yes, but it's not like you have a Makar or Quinn Hughes, someone that's going to be on that defensive side putting up a ton of points. Well, Forsling and Ekblad Forsling's on the up, but Ekblad's kind of starting to decline now. Um, I think they're still a playoff team without those two players, but they're not a cup contender. They've got a lot of solid pieces, but not guys that are going to take you back to another cup. You need that Barkov who's so solid defensively, and he can contribute in the offensive zone as well. Kachuk just brings the energy to the team with either a goal, big hit. He's making good plays out there. Every single shift, he gives it his all. You need a guy like that on your team.
Yeah, I kind of fall in the same place as you. I still think this is a very deep team. You still have, Reinhardt and Bennett, who can score and have that sandpaper. You still have the Rat out there that is going to cause his problems with people, and he's still skilled. And somehow this offseason they found a way to sign all of their UFAs, and I did not think that was going to happen. I for sure thought Ekblad was leaving. They all took a little bit of a cap hit, and they got it done. They brought the band back together. Um, but yeah, like you look at that team and you lose your captain, who I've said for years is one of the most underrated players in the NHL, until they finally win a cup and people recognize how good Sasha Barkov is. He is an elite two-way player. And then you take the heart and soul out of that team with Kachuk for half a year. I think this team's going to struggle. Now, they still have good defense, like you said. They still have good goaltending with Bob back there. But I think this team is going to take a dip. This to me looks more like 2 years ago, where they squeaked into the playoffs and then made that deep run, rather than kind of running the table like last year. So I think it's a team to watch, because if they falter early and can't get it going and it just doesn't seem right, it could open up a spot for somebody to try and sneak in there that shouldn't be in there. So I don't see this as being a huge problem, but it is something that I agree with you. I don't think this is a Stanley Cup contender. Before we were talking like, hey, they're still the favorite to three-peat this. Like, until someone beats them, they've looked dominant in the playoffs. I don't think we can make that statement anymore. I don't even think they're the favorite in the East anymore. So it opens the door wide open for a few teams, and one of them might be looking for a goaltender. We've had some interesting developments over the last couple of years. If you guys have been following Hockey Canada and the whole allegations of things that happened with the Canada Five, they all just got acquitted. There are no charges brought upon them, and they are free to sign with an NHL team. But there are some stipulations, which I thought was weird. I had to write it down because it's so odd, that these guys got acquitted of all charges, which would make them free agents because they've all been dropped by the teams they played with. But they can't sign a contract until October 1st. So tomorrow they can sign a contract. So when you guys are seeing this video, it is October 1st when this will come out. They will be free to sign a contract today. But they also can't play until December 1st, which this makes no sense to me. How are you going to acquit these guys of all charges, whether we agree or disagree on it, whether you think they did something or they didn't? They've been acquitted. There's no prosecuting them. There's no charges. Why can they not sign as a normal free agent, and why are they then being punished again until December 1st to even play with their team? Like, what sense does this make?
I don't really get it either. I mean, they're allowed to practice with the team, travel with the team, but they can't go on the ice to sit in the press box all whole game. I think it's more of a thing for the NHL to kind of build up their own reputation. Like, we get that this happened, we get that it was still bad. No charges were pressed, but we're still going to have some sort of punishment here. besides I think it's 2 years they weren't allowed to play before
Yeah.
the actual trial happened. But I don't get it. Some of those guys still have NHL potential in them, and knocking them back even farther into the return, I don't think it helps their odds.
Yeah, it almost feels like the NHL is like, we think there was probably a little bit of something, and so we're going to give them a little extra to try and save face, like you said. Especially with the whole Chicago situation several years ago. I think the NHL wants to save face and make a stand at like, hey, we will not stand for any kind of sexual misconduct whatsoever. We're putting our foot down, and here's a little extra to show that we're going to stand by that and we mean it. And for those of you not aware, those five players that are now free to sign contracts are Michael McLeod, Dylan Dubé, Alex Fermenton, Cal Foote, and Carter Hart. And it's kind of weird because I've really only heard a little bit of buzz about two of those guys. Even kind of getting sniffs from NHL team, and one of them's Alex Fermenton, and the other one is Carter Hart. And there's a lot of buzz around Carter Hart right now of trying to figure out where he's going to go. It seems like there was five or so teams in the mix. One of them being Philly, where he was before, but it sounds like he wants a fresh start and he wants to go somewhere different and have an opportunity to play. But he also seems like he wants to go to a winning team. So where do you see this one playing out? Where do you see him signing? And do you see him signing tomorrow or today when people are watching this, or do you think it's going to take a few weeks?
I think it might take a few weeks just for all the kinks of how this works to settle themselves out and them to find a good deal for what does he still have in him, what like talent did he lose over the last 2 years of not being able to play. But for where he could sign, I see a few options. So there's a few places that need a goalie bad and that are on the fringe of the playoffs or have a good team and they're just missing that key goalie. I think if you look out west first, there's Utah. They need a solid backing in their. They have a young team that has a lot of talent. They brought in Sergachev last year, great addition, and they've got Genther who's playing out of his mind. Keller's playing amazing as well, and Vejmelka's he's been great. He's been great in times, but other times he's very shaky. And when you look at Carter Hart back when he was in Philly, on the team that they had there, that was not very good. He was a very shining star on that team. I think if you give him a couple of months and it kind of hurts again with he can't play until December, but he can sign that contract, do we really know what we're going to get out of him? You can maybe sign him to a 1 year deal, maybe around 1 to 2 million if they have that space. I'd have to look. But have him back up Vejmelka for a little while and see if he can take that role because I think they really need that goaltender and they can make a playoff push this year. Out there in the East, the Blue Jackets have been on the fringe for a couple years here. They've got the young guys. The defense is there from time to time if Werenski stays healthy. Finally played a full year last year, but I think they just traded for Fedotov out of Philly as well. And I think they dropped him to waivers like 3 days later. But they've also got Merzlikins out there, and as good as Merzlikins is on his day, he's not the guy who's going to get you in a deep playoff run. And if Carter Hart had that opportunity out in Philly, a good team around him, young team, like the Blue Jackets have, I think he would be a really good option for them to explore.
Yeah, there's only a few teams that can't afford him if he's willing to sign a 1 year, 1 million prove it deal. Even 2 years, that only takes about 10 teams out of it. For me, I like the Utah. I have that as one of my three possibilities. Um, I love this Utah team. I think it's young and it's exciting. And as soon as they got out of Arizona, Bill Armstrong was able to add money to it, and he just took over and signed players and made huge trades. And I think this is a team when we talk about the Central that we're going to have a serious conversation about because I think this is a playoff ready team to just make their charge for the first time in years. Like you said, Vejmelka's been solid. He was kind of the savior in Arizona for a while. But is he that 1A goalie that can carry a team in the playoffs? I don't know. And whether he is or he isn't, you need a 1B. The NHL is not a one goalie league anymore like it used to be. There are very few guys taking the full load for the entire season playing 60 plus games. It just doesn't happen anymore. So you've got to have a competent backup. So whether he's starting over Vijmelka or he's the backup or they're splitting it, doing a 40-40 split, whatever it might be, I think that's a really good option for Utah. I think there's worse options out there. Um, I heard one really interesting one that didn't make all that much sense to me. I heard Nashville, and I didn't like that fit at all.
I don't like that.
They've got UC Saros there signed long term, and they've even got some young goalies in the system that were high picks. So like that didn't make sense to me unless you're like, hey, we're going full rebuild after this last year, and we're going to start selling off pieces, and UC Saros is going to be one of them, and we just want to have a couple young guys ready to take over. But that fit doesn't make any sense to me. And the two that I kind of feel like it's gonna be one of these. First is Carolina, because like you said, somehow they get everybody. I don't understand how they have cap space, but they just keep signing star players over and over and over again, and they make it work with the cap. Um, I see that being a decent fit. I like their goaltending to an extent. I think they've got some solid guys there that could already kind of be that 1A, 1B for them, unless they see Hart as an upgrade. But the fit that I like the best and where I ultimately see him going is Vegas. Um, I don't know. I think he wants to go to a winner, and Vegas has won recently. They're loaded, and if you can get somebody of his status for that cheap for at least a year, um, that's something Vegas doesn't have the luxury of have is cap space because they spend to it and they pay their people, and they're going to have a big decision this upcoming offseason because Jack Eichel needs to get re-signed, and if a winger is getting $17 million, what is Jack Eichel going to get? So I think we're talking about kind of that similar range. You're talking McDavid, Eichel, and Kaprizov all in that range together. So it's going to be hard to get that contract signed, and you're going to want some cheap pieces. So maybe this is one where they give him a multi-year deal. Maybe they give him a 2 or 3 year deal at 2 or 3 million to keep the cap hit down and just take a chance that he turns into something. But I would like that tandem of him and Logan Thompson. I think that would be really good. There, you've got two young guys that can battle it out and push each other. Um, and Vegas, over the years, has tended to have goaltending injuries a lot. So, it's never a bad idea to have multiple goalies who can be, ready to go. What was it the one year? They played like 7 different goalies at one point.
I think that was the year after
Like,
they won the cup.
yeah, it was rough. So, if any team knows goaltending depth, how important it is, it's Vegas. So I see Vegas ultimately signing him, but I really like that Utah option. I think it would be really good for him, and I think it would be really good for the club. Um, I don't know how long I see this playing out. I Part of me wants to say like he's got a deal in place and they're going to announce it tomorrow. Just gut feeling like it's been so long that they've been able to kind of go about this. I feel like he's gone places, had dinner with ownership, met the team, kind of seen facilities. So I think this is going to be pretty quick. Maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it's a week from now, but I don't see it playing out much past a week from now. I think he kind of knows where he wants to go. Maybe he'll visit, his final two places again and then make a decision. But I think he wants to get with his team and get on the ice before the season officially starts.
Yep.
Um, so it's going to be interesting. We'll have to keep an eye out on him. We'll have to keep an eye out on the rest of the Canada Five. Hate that that's a thing, but we'll have to keep an eye and see if anyone's takers there. I think I heard one of them retired and isn't even going to try and make a comeback. Was it Cal Foot?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which sucks because I grew up watching his dad play for Colorado for all of those years. So I was hoping he was going to be solid and do that, but career not playing for 2 years, allegations, and then he just calling it quits. So that sucks, but we'll see what ends up happening with that. We had some signings recently. Let's talk about those real quick. I'm going to give them to you, all of them that happened. You tell me how you feel about them, if you liked them, if you didn't like them. We talked about Kirill Kaprizov already. Just re-put it out there. 8 years, 17 million, biggest contract in NHL history. It even beat Ovechkin's 13-year deal that he signed. It's more money on less years, and then it's again $3 million AAV higher than Draisaitl's. So that's just crazy. We've talked about that. Then we had Cam Fowler, kind of out of nowhere. With the Blues, he got an extension, 3 years, 6.1 million per year. I was watching the preseason game, and then they're like, "Hey, second intermission. By the way, Cam Fowler extension just happened." We're like, "Did he sign it in the middle of intermission? What's happening here?" Um, which this will take him through his age 36 season. Um, he got traded over from the Ducks last year for a second round pick, and he was having a rough season. As soon as he gets to the Blues, he tears it up. Um, it was like the most points for a defenseman in that time frame, like ever. And he put up more than a point per game in the playoffs against Winnipeg. So he was a big part of that defense. He kind of stabilized it. Played on that top pair with Colton Parayko, and they settled that defense down. So, how do you feel about this term, length, how old he's going to be by the end of it? How you see this one playing out?
I like the length of the contract, just of how long he's been in the NHL, that veteran presence that helps a young guy like Broberg step up into that role that hopefully he can fill for the Blues. But I don't so much like the term. It's always based off his awesome season before that. But can he keep that production coming? We will find out. And as he gets older, and the cap rises, so it's really not that bad of a term. I would have liked to see maybe a million lowered, like a $5 million cap hit. But to keep a guy like that around who brings that energy and can produce, if he keeps producing like that, it's a great deal. And plays well both ends and kind of solidifies that Blues D core that was a little shaky before they had him. I think it's a good deal. Does it age as well as maybe the first year works out? Probably not, as he gets older, and the Blues D is a little old back there. So the cap hit that they have him at, it's not my favorite, but I do think it'll be a good addition to have him there for the next 2-3 years while those younger guys start to develop and come into the team.
Yeah, I think it was definitely necessary. If you look at the Blues D, you got Broberg, who had an awesome season, had an injury, but he's still young. He's 24. He hasn't played a full year. He had that awesome playoffs with Edmonton, and then Doug Armstrong offer sheets him, and he comes over and has a great year for us, and looks like a true number one, number two defenseman. But outside of Colton Parayko, Philip Broberg, and Cam Fowler, you've got Justin Falk, who has 1 year left, and just he had a bad year last year. Like, there's no other way to put it. He wasn't good. Um, and then your bottom pair, you're looking at Tyler Tucker and Logan Mailloux. I'm excited for Mailloux. I think he's got a lot of offensive upside, and so far, what I've watched in the preseason, he's looked like a physical presence. It comes to can he defend, but he's young. He's going to need a little bit of time. I ultimately see him coming up to that second pair, but before the end of this season's over. But you don't have, like, if you don't re-sign him, you've got three defensemen next year that have NHL experience, really. I think it was a necessity, and I do think I kind of had that mindset of you, like, ooh, we paid a little much for the end of his career. But then when you think about the cap going up, like, $6 million in this cap is going to look like a $4 million contract in comparison to the percentage it takes up. So I wasn't as upset as soon as I thought about how the cap's going to work with this. But Cam Fowler was a huge reason the Blues went on the run that they did last year. And I think having him on that top pair with Parayko is a big deal. That veteran presence means a lot in that locker room. So I'm excited about it. I thought it was a good deal. It needed to get done. I was, in my personal preference, in a perfect world where the player doesn't have any say, could have been like a 2 year, $5 million extension. That would have been perfect world, but you give him the extra year, you give him the extra money because he was so good. So I think this is a win for the Blues, and this is a win for Cam Fowler as well. And then the other contract, which I thought this was going to end in a trade. I didn't see this deal getting done with the way it was going, was restricted free agent Mason McTavish with Anaheim. He got the 6 year bridge contract, which is really weird how the bridge contracts are working now. It used to be 2-3 years. Now these young players are like, yeah, give me like 6, eat out all my UFAs, and then I'm going to get a massive deal when I'm 26 now instead of 30. So it's smart on their part, but I didn't think this one was getting done. It seems like they were kind of at each other's throats a little bit. Verbeek doesn't seem like he's the easiest person to negotiate with and kind of stands his ground. And we've seen him send players out for this reason. So I personally didn't think this was going to get done, but Mason McTavish gets signed for 6 years, $7 million. What do you think about that, and how do you feel like he fits into this lineup with having Coach Q now at the helm in Anaheim?
I'll be excited to see what Coach Q has to bring back to the league. All those years coaching Chicago, bringing them a ton of cups. So hopefully, I mean, not hopefully, I don't really want to root for the Ducks, but they've got a lot of young guys that are fun to watch.
Yeah, they
Um,
do.
but I think that's a guy you kind of have to re-sign, and the deal that he got is pretty good for what I think he'll produce in those 6 years that he has. But only 7 million with the rising cap. You think with like a bridge deal like that, is it a bridge deal or is it more so like let's find your fit? Um, but he brings a really strong two-way game, I think, to that, and that's a guy you need around a star player that they have in Leo Carlson, is the more offensive force there. Um, I just hope it doesn't end in something like Zegras, where like the Ducks just don't pan out and he just kind of flares away, kind of like Zegras did. But I would like to see how like this team improves because they have a lot of young guys coming up through there. They've got what is it, Dostal starting there in goal this year. I'm excited to
Yeah.
see what he has to do. Um, but I think there's going to be another few years of Anaheim being in that close to the bottom of that division. But they have a bright future ahead of them, and I think he'll be a captain one day of that team.
Yeah, it's. I'm looking at their team now, and it's so confusing looking at it. They have so many free agents this next offseason. It's going to be interesting to see the direction that they go, who stays, who goes. Um, but if you look at just their young kids, and it's weird seeing Troy Terry, he's 28 now, which
28.
is just insane to me because I remember watching him play for the World Juniors for the U.S. in the shootouts. I'm like,
Yep.
how is he 28 already? Um, but those young guys, you talked about Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish. You've also got Cutter Gauthier there, who I absolutely love, and I see either him or McTavish as your future captain. That just grit and sandpaper. Like I compare Cutter Gauthier to a Kachuk. Like that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
type of play that I see out of him. Love watching him play. Love the attitude he plays with. So I'm interested to see with where that goes. Sam Colangelo has, I think a decent future ahead of him. But then you look at the back end, and it is young. They're just going to start these guys and see what happens because they've got Jacob Truba, but it's only one more year. They've got Ratko Gudis. Gosh, I cannot say his name today. Who's 35. He's in his last year. But then after that, you've got 24, 24, 21, 22, and Drew Hellison, Jackson Lacombe, Pavel Minchikov, Tristan Lunau, and Owen Zellweger. This is a young back end, but those are some pretty big prospect names that they're just going to let get a taste of the NHL and see where it goes and find out if they're ready or not and if they're part of this core. Because if those four guys look good this season, they've got their future top four ready to go. It's just about experience and more playing time together.
100%. I think that defensive end there, Lacombe, Zellweger, I think that's their top pair in a couple of years. Those guys, I think, are going to adjust really well to NHL game time. And Bennett Sinecki, who they drafted pretty early in a
Oh man,
draft, I think it was 2 years ago
third
now, maybe it was
overall,
1 year.
yeah,
It was kind of surprised when he got drafted,
it
but
was.
I think what they picked him at, I think they probably could have done better. But that third pick that they had, Sinecki, I think he'll slot in there as well as a nice addition to that Ducks offense, and I think that team's going to be really really good in the future.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you saw him more as like a late top 10, just out of the top 10 type guy. And if you remember when he got drafted, there might have been some explicits out of his mouth because
Yeah.
he was so shocked that he got picked at 3. But he's a guy like when you talk about the draft, you're looking at like high end skill at that end of the draft, and he's not a high end skill player, but he's a I do everything very very well type of player that's going to play on both ends. And growing up being a Blues fan, like I remember the days of Coach Q with the Blues, and that's a type of player that he's going to like. So you can kind of see this nucleus forming about what kind of team they want. Um, with McTavish, Gauthier, Carlson's going to be more of your skill guy.
Yeah.
But then, with Beckett Seneca also, you're kind of looking at that gritty, hard nosed type deal, which makes a lot of sense because, one, that's kind of the game Coach Q coached to when he was here in St. Louis. But that's what Pat Verbeek was as a player. He was that gritty, in your face, you hate to play against him type player. And he's kind of already surrounded these guys with the right people to learn from. You've got a Michael Granlund who I think they way overpaid to get him a lot, but he's a good center. He's going to hold down the fort for you. He's going to teach some of these young guys the two-way game. But then you've got Chris Kreider and Alex Killorn, Frank Vetrano. Like, those are guys that are just good, gritty vets that you want these young guys to learn work habits from and how to play the game the right way. They're not going to not drive the net. They're going to the dirty areas to score. They're going to forecheck. They're going to play the cycle game on the wall. I think they've done a good job of kind of putting a good nucleus around these young guys, and I think Anaheim's future is very bright. I am confused about their goaltending, though.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they signed Ville Husso to the deal. You already know Lucas Dostal is your starting goalie. You gave him the big contract as he deserved. You have Peter Mrazek there for one more year at over $4 million. Why are you paying $2.2 million for multiple years to Ville Husso, who was terrible in Detroit? We liked him here in St. Louis for a little bit, but it was time for him to go. He wanted to get paid. We weren't going to do that with the guys that we got now in Hofer and Bennington and Net. So it was something that he wanted and he needed, and then he crapped the bed in Detroit.
Yes, he did.
I don't know why he deserves that much money. I don't know why he deserved multiple years, and I don't know why you did it when you already have your 1 and 2 goalie.
Okay.
That's the only confusing thing with Anaheim for me.
I think they have the space right now to work with that, though. I mean, one of them's going to be the backup. It doesn't really matter.
It's almost like they needed to fill cap space.
Yeah, that could be it.
So we'll see how that plays out. But again, it's never bad if you've got the room to have an extra goalie just in case something happens. So talked about the big important stuff. Few things that I want to get to. I'm going to save. Oh, I forgot one. Anthony Stolarz got the 4-year, $3.75 million contract to be the starting goaltender in Toronto. I'm actually shocked it was only this much.
Yeah.
He was good for Toronto. Berube clearly likes him. He held down the fort. He solidified that goaltending spot. That's been a revolving door for years now. And you got him on a 4-year deal. Okay, good. How did they only get him for $3.75? Like, if you looked at free agency this offseason, like Jake Allen, who's like 36, got a 5-year, like $5 million deal. How does this come in under that?
I don't know. The Stolarz was outstanding for the games that he had there before I think he picked up an injury. But he was outstanding, and for keeping him at 4 years at that type of cap space, that's a deal. You look 4 years down the line. If he fills in and really is strong in between the posts there for them, I think that's just one of the best goaltender deals in the league.
Yeah, that's backup money.
Yeah.
Like, that's backup money in the former cap space. Now this is like low-tier backup money in the new cap hit era. Like, this just didn't make sense for me. I think he needs to fire his agent because that's just not good business. If you're a player, you're like, man, all these guys are getting huge deals. Why am I only getting this for this long? Like, if it was like a 1-year deal because they don't have cap space and they want to figure out what's going on in the future, fine. But to sign 4 years, like, man, you must love Toronto and want to save them some money to be able to sign some defensemen or something because that's a sweetheart deal.
He could have easily gotten $6 to $6.5 million on a 5-year
deal. For sure. Before we get to the last thing I want to talk about, the New York Rangers named newcomer but former player JT Miller as their new captain now that Jacob Trouba is in Anaheim. Did you like the pick? And also, how bad does this look for Vancouver right now?
One looks bad for Vancouver, but at the same time with the captain pick, he was touted as kind of a locker room cancer in Vancouver coming from that trade and then bringing him into your team, he's been there before, yeah, but bringing him back into your team, a guy who's been touted as that locker room cancer and giving him the C after not even a full year on the team, I think so. A little bit of a strange move. You've got some older guys there who probably deserved it more, who've been there a long time. I wouldn't say Panarin. I'm blanking.
Mika.
Yeah, Zibanejad for sure. I think should have been the clear captain pick there. We're not in the locker room. We don't get to see what goes on in there. JT Miller might be that leader. He'll really say it how it is for them. But I think it's a really weird pick, especially with only being in the team for 1 year. And you've seen it in the past with guys like O'Reilly won a cup and then he comes and becomes the captain of the Blues the next year. But I don't really understand that one completely.
No, I look at this and I'm like, you've got Adam Fox, who has won the Norris and is one of the top defensemen in the NHL. Apparently, I have another app open, and the game ended, and so we're getting feed. Um, um, but you've got Adam Fox, who's a Norris-winning defenseman, who's signed for multi-years, who's one of those best guys in the league. He already wears an A, or has worn an A. You've got Mika Zibanejad, who, again, is signed for long-term, has been there for a long time, has at least 5 more years on his deal. I don't think you're giving it to Panarin. I don't think he's a captain material. Just the way he plays, I don't see it. But then you've also got a guy like Vinny Trocheck, who just does everything right and seems like that ultimate veteran in the locker room that everyone seems to love. And they refuse to trade him out of all the guys. They're like, yeah, we're not trading Vinny. And he's got 4 more years on his deal. So you look around that locker room and you're like, man, they had a lot of good options. And it went to JT Miller. Does that say, to me, that says more about Vancouver than it does about JT Miller? Because we heard some locker room cancer stuff, but man, it seemed like there was just a feud between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson in Vancouver. Yeah. And I feel like this ultimately came down to we can't keep both because of how bad it's gotten and how bad Petey's been playing on that $11.5 million contract for 7 more years. Like, we would have to eat some of that money for 7 years to trade him. I feel like this ultimately came down to you have to move one of them, and you're not able to move Pettersson without eating money and not getting a good return, that they had to choose him. I don't feel like they really had a choice. So to me, like, I don't know. I've heard mixed things about the locker room there in Vancouver. It almost seemed like Pettersson was the young kid who kind of felt like he should have everything given to him and was lazy. And Miller kind of called him out and was like, this isn't how we're going to do things. And then it just became a huge battle and an issue in the locker room where neither would give. And ultimately it came down to that. So if that's how it went down, I think that's captain stuff. Like, if you've got a player being lazy, not being held accountable, like, that's your job as the captain to put them in their place. So who knows what actually happened? Like you said, we're not in the locker room. We don't know. So maybe JT Miller is that ultimate leader in the room, and having experience there, that short time that he was back, really, solidified that for them. But it'll be interesting. I think Vancouver is in a world of hurt. I don't know what they're doing. I think Quinn Hughes is walking the second he gets an opportunity to. And I think if they're smart, they go ahead and just trade him to New Jersey now and get something back as much as possible because, honestly, Quinn Hughes is a top 3 defenseman. He might be a top 2 with him and Makar. I really don't think after him and Makar, I don't think there's anybody. I don't think it's particularly close. Some of those good guys are getting older now because, I'm a huge Victor Hedman guy, but, he's getting up there in age now and just not as fleet on the feet as he used to be. So, that's a guy that you want to be your centerpiece and your captain, and he's openly talked about how he wants to play with his brothers in New Jersey. So
I don't
know what they're doing. I don't know what they're going to do. They should be in full rebuild mode right now, and the best thing that they could do is trade Quinn while he has multiple years on his contract still, so you get even more for him. But I don't think Vancouver's smart enough, and I think they're going to throw the world at him to try and get him to stay, and I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah. I think the Vancouver fall-off started when they got rid of Horvat, I think 2 years ago. That's a huge piece of your team, and I didn't really. And the return for it was terrible.
No, it
They
didn't
got
make any sense.
a mid to best prospect, and I think a first round pick with it, which I don't think turned out to be anything all too special from the Islanders because I think they made the playoffs that year. And who knows, they always turn out later. But for the time being and what they had and what they were trying to accomplish and how that team was playing altogether, I don't really understand that trade.
Yeah, it didn't make sense for me. What they're doing now doesn't make sense to me. Um, I think they got rid of a coach in Rick Tocchet, who's an excellent coach, but the drama and issues there ruined that team. So I don't know what they're going to do, but it's going to be ugly. And you know what? Let's keep another Canadian team bad for longer and keep the cup out of Canada. So I'm all in favor of that. The last thing I want to get to tonight, we kind of had a feel good story in the NHL. Somebody that just no one has a bad word to say about, and that's Marc Andre Fleury. The Flower has officially played his last game in the NHL. He signed a PTO with Pittsburgh, and he was going to play one last preseason game, which he did the other night. It was super cool how they did it. They played their game. They did a last shootout for Flower to end it. And I don't know. I was somebody who, as much as I didn't want Pittsburgh to win, couldn't help but root for the guy. Even when he came to Minnesota and Chicago, even, I'm like, I kind of want him to do well still. He's just that lovable guy that everyone likes. He's a prankster. If you guys haven't seen it, this week in camp, he took big, giant, yellow 29 stickers and was putting them on like Crosby's car and stuff, and just being a menace that he is. It was absolutely awesome. But Flower has played his last game for the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is a little sad. It's the end of an era. Um, he was on. He was. He's gonna go to the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah,
He was an elite goalie for a long time and just a super good dude. Um, but with that, let's talk about the Penguins for a minute. This team looks rough.
very.
They seem to think for the last 3 or 4 years, we're going to get everything one last go for Crosby and Malkin, and it hasn't worked. So you've got Crosby, you've got Malkin, you've got Erik Karlsson. They're all on huge contracts. They've already said at the end of this contract they're not re-signing Malkin. I assume he's probably going to retire.
Yeah.
Crosby's on the last year of his deal. And there's been talks for over a year now about possibly trading him, and it seems like he might be open to that at this point. And then Erik Karlsson was one of the biggest talks of the offseason of where's he getting moved. It sounded like he was going to get moved to Detroit. It never happened, and he's still there on a big contract. This is a very old team
Very,
with
very.
not a good prospect pool because they've traded it all away to try and keep the band together and make one last run. That's never worked. Their defense isn't good, and they don't have goalies that can stop a puck. Like,
Yeah.
this team is in shambles. What are they doing?
Well, I'm looking at their roster here now, and outside of their top line, and then I guess Malkin, it just drops off. And I think Rust and Raquel are probably out of there at the same time Crosby and
Hundred
Malkin are.
percent.
But then you look at they've got Denton Heinen on their second line left wing, Anthony Mantha on the right, and then Nola Kari, Blake Lizotte, and Tommy Novak. And it just gets even worse on that fourth line.
It's
And
not good.
it's not good. And you look at that defense too. You've got what is it? Adam Graves, I think. Ryan Graves. It's
Ryan
Ryan
Graves.
Graves. He took like 40 games last year to put up his first point. I remember seeing something about that. That's not something you want. You've got Jari who hasn't performed in a few years. Hopefully he can make
Well, they
a
also
comeback.
traded for Matt Dumba and his
Yeah, they've got
terrible
Matt Dumba
contract.
down there,
Like, what
and
are
he's
we
not.
doing?
Yeah, I think the only bright spot, even in the slightest that they have, is Rudy McGroarty in the prospect pool. And I don't really understand that trade. I think who they gave up for him, Brandon Yeager, was going to be better than Rudy McGroarty was going to be. It's just
A head case.
yeah, this team just in the future, this is going to be another one of those a Sharks situation, but I think it's going to take even longer to fix.
Yeah, it's going to be Sharks Blackhawks situation. It's going to be ugly. Listen, the NHL says it's not rigged. We know the NHL is rigged. I don't care what anyone says. Pittsburgh's getting the first overall pick in this draft, and they're going to take Gavin McKenna.
Yep.
And it's going to be their reload to start all over again, just like when it was rigged the first time they got Crosby when they were about to sell the team and it was to save Pittsburgh. We see this all the time. Like, we knew before the draft even happened that the Chicago was going to win and get Connor Bedard. We all knew it.
Yeah.
Like, there was no reason to watch. This is the same situation. Unless Pittsburgh is stupid and makes the playoffs, they're getting the first overall pick.
I don't think
so this team is in shambles. Like, the defense is so bad. Like,
Connor
Chris Letang still has 3 more years on this contract, but
I think he retires.
he about died at one point. Like, legitimately almost died. Erik Karlsson's got 2 years left at $10 million, and he's not good anymore. They're gonna have to eat half of that to trade him.
This is
The positive that I see is they did trade for Arturas Silovs from Vancouver, which again, what is
Vancouver's selling it?
Vancouver's Vancouvering, and I can't handle it. Like, I don't get what they're doing. So they've got a goalie of the future. He was elite in the AHL playoffs, dominated down there, and single-handedly won that team the cup. So they've got a bright spot there. On their back end, like, you've got Alex Alexiev, who, was kind of a high prospect for a while, but hasn't really put anything out there. You've got Owen Pickering, a recent early pick, who I like. There's some potential there. But that's it on defense.
Yeah.
Like, literally going through their prospects, that is it. And then on offense, it's not much better. Like, I'm going through their prospect pool now, and you've got Ben Kindle, who you drafted this year, and you got Rucker McGroarty, who they're both kind of gritty style players. McGroarty's not really a head case, but it's one of the young generation of feeling like they deserve everything to be given to them instantly without earning anything. And that's why he wanted to leave Winnipeg. He thought he deserved a roster spot as a rookie, and they're like, dude, you're not ready. So they traded him. And Pittsburgh got him, and I agree with you. I like Brandon Yeager a lot more than I like Rucker McGroarty. I liked him out of the draft, but everything he's done since then has screamed, I'm a giant tool, and I'm going to be a locker room problem. Especially with Pittsburgh not going to be winning for a long time. I think it's going to be problematic, and he'll probably request another trade.
I think so.
So I don't like it. I like Ben Kindle, but you drafted a small, hard-working, kind of gritty guy who I personally absolutely love out of Calgary, but where's your scoring going to be coming from in a couple of years? Like, Raquel and Rust are going to get traded at the deadline. They're going to want out. Crosby's going to get traded. Malkin's going to retire. And then your depth scoring is, Mantha, Heinen, Blake Lazat's an okay player. You hope Philip Tomasino turns into something, but he hasn't yet. And then Billy Koivunen, Robbie Fabry, who knows how, as much as I was a Fabry guy, like, you've had multiple ACL surgeries. Like, you're just not the same anymore. You can't be as dynamic, as explosive. So, like, I don't know where their first scoring is coming from, let alone their secondary scoring. Like, this team doesn't have a good defense, and they don't have primary or secondary scoring. And unless Arthur Silvos takes over, it's going to be a rough go of the year. If he's not ready, this team, I don't know what the record for worst team in hockey is, but they're not going to beat it because some of those expansion teams were terrible back in the day. But this is a team that they could lose 50 games. Like, I'm not putting it past them. Like, this could be a 60-point team, which we haven't seen in a while. So I think if you're a Pittsburgh fan, and I've got some family friends that really like the Penguins, it's going to be a rough go for you. I'm sorry, but you're about to lose Malkin, you're about to lose Crosby, and you've got nothing else behind them. So good luck.
I think it's going to be a rough 8 years for them.
And that's the thing. Like, you talk about rebuild, and you hope they're 3 to 5 years. Let's restock, retool. We'll get these guys here. It'll be fine. The Sharks have taken longer than that. Chicago, keeps trying, like they did it the first time and it worked out because they got a couple generational players,
Yep.
but it's not working right now
No.
for Chicago. Bedard isn't signed, and it seems like they've had some back and forth over the last 2 years where he might be like, "Screw this, I'm not sticking
Yeah.
around for it." Um, I like some of the things they've done. I like them getting some of their young guys signed early, like Frank Nazar. I really like him. I think they gave him too much money for being unproven, but I like their idea of we're going to sign these young guys to a higher contract to get them to stay. And if they pan out in 2 or 3 years, that's going to look like a really good
Very good deal.
contract.
Yep.
And maybe it entices Bedard to stay.
Yep.
Maybe it entices some solid vets to come in and want to be a part of it. Um, but that's another team. Like Chicago's rebuild has not gone well this time around, and I think they've got several more years in it. Um, thankfully, so
I do like their
as a Blues
this
fan,
year.
screw you guys and everything you stand for and your city. Goodbye. Um, so, um, any last thoughts about the upcoming season or anything we didn't hit on that you wanted to bring up?
Um, kind
Put
of
you on the
just the
spot.
McDavid contract's the biggest thing I'm
Yeah.
thinking of. It's a contract year for McDavid. Is he going to have a year he had 2 or 3 years ago, or is it going to be kind of like last year where he's not still a great player, but a little down from what he usually does in his scoring? So I would like him. I've got him on my fantasy team, so
Yeah, is he putting up 110 or 150? That's what we need to know.
that's the question. I need that 150.
Insane.
But I think that's the biggest question until it happens is what's going on with McDavid in the
Yeah,
Oilers.
where is the face of hockey going to
Yeah,
play next year? There's not a bigger story. Like if we go back and you've got, you know, Gretzky, and it's where's Gretzky going to go in his
yeah,
prime? That would be every headline, and I think in Canada that is every headline
yeah,
right now. Usually it's the Maple Leafs kind of in charge of everything, especially with Marner leaving and going to
yeah.
Vegas,
I
which
think that'll be
is
interesting.
also
Eichel and Marner
crazy.
together is going to
Oh,
be very fun to watch.
yeah, it'll be. I think Marner wants more than anything to prove that he can play in the playoffs,
Yeah.
but he's got to stop being soft.
Yes.
So it'll be good to have someone like Eichel and maybe Mark Stone on his line that he doesn't have
Yeah.
to do the heavy lifting and he can just be a finisher. I think it'll be really good for Marner. It'll be fun to see what Toronto looks like because as Berube said, I'm tired of hearing about the core four. They're
Yeah.
not there anymore.
No.
So what's it going to look like? They saved some cap space. Did they spend it wisely? We'll see. I still think that team needs some defense if they want to make a serious run. So I'm excited for this upcoming season. As a Blues fan, I'm super pumped about the now and the future with how our prospects are looking. I think it's going to be a fun time for us. But like we said, Central Division's loaded. So any of you watching, still listening, thank you. We appreciate it. Let us know your thoughts on it. If you agree with us, if you disagree with us, tell us where you think McDavid's going. Is he coming? Is he going? And how do you feel about that Kaprizov deal?
Yeah.
8 years, $17 million, just blowing away the record. Would you have done it, or would you have moved him? Let us know in the comments. We appreciate it. Follow us on the Instagram, all the social medias, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you're listening and watching on. We appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Julian, it was good to have you. New faith on the show and to get hockey going. I'm excited to talk hockey every week. I know you are too.
100%.
So we're going to be signing out today. We'll leave you with that. And as the season goes on, we'll have more stories and news. Next week, join us. We'll talk about our season preview, who we think is going to do what, who's making the playoffs, maybe give you some predictions for awards, all that fun stuff next week. So, everybody watching, this is a We Were Athletes podcast. Thank you, and goodbye.